Hello, students. Today we'll be talking about something that you've already seen or already know about, and that is domain and range. So this is a quick video on what we will be doing in class today. So if you miss it or have internet issues, you can refer to this video so that you know what's going on. So we'll be talking about linear, quadratic, and exponential. So no matter if it is a linear function or an exponential function or a quadratic function, if the question on the STAAR exam is asking you for the domain of a function, it is the x-coordinates of that function. So wherever your line is, whatever graph you have, your domain, you're going to want to look at your x values. So where are my x values? My x values are on the x-axis. So because this function has a line segment here, we've got two endpoints, and we've got a domain, which our x values are from 3 to 12. So we would say that our domain of this function would be any value from 3 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 12. And we use those inequalities because this is a continuous function. So the range, again, we would look at our y-axis. So we want to go to our y-axis on this side here. We're going to be seeing that the function goes from 6 to 12. This line segment has any value between 6 and 12, and again, is continuous. So range, we're looking for our y values of that function. So when you see a graph, or if you graph it on your calculator, you always want to look from bottom to top because we want to go from our smallest value to our largest value. And if we want to do that on our domain, we go from left to right. And if we do that on our range, we go from top to bottom. So no matter if I have a quadratic that has a vertex at the bottom and then goes up, that would be our bottommost point. Or if we have a exponential function and we drive from negative to positive like this, we would look from left to right for our domain, and we would up to down to see what would be our range. So a couple more things that you should know about domain and range, or that you need to jolt your memory for, is discrete versus continuous. So discrete means that we're counting. We've got a set of die, we've got tickets to a movie, we've got people. I can't have 1.5 people. I can't have 2.5 tickets. I have 1 ticket to the movie, 2 tickets to the movie, 3 tickets to the movie, 4, and let's say I have a family of 5. So this would be my range. It would be my x values. I would only have tickets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But if I'm measuring my shoe size, my feet can be 9.5 inches. It can be 9.35 inches. It could be 8 inches, so on and forth. So this is a continuous. So that means that my feet could have a domain of x greater than or equal to 8. But we might want to cap on that as well. So let's say that our biggest foot's going to be 13 inches. So I can have any number of decimals. I can have any number of size feet in a group of people, so that I have 8 as my lowest inches and 13 as my highest. But again, I could have all these values in the middle. And then, of course, with your inequalities, if we want to include something or if we want to exclude something, we do the less than and greater than, or less than and equal to, and greater than and equal to. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your graph, when you're determining what we're talking about, things like that. So now that you've reviewed domain and range, let's talk about some strategies on the STAAR exam. So we've talked about keywords and finding out what we need in a STAAR exam. So our keywords, remember, are always domain and range. So if it's domain, am I looking for my x values? In my range, am I looking for my y values? If it gives you an equation, use your calculator. Go ahead and type that bad boy up and get him in the calculator so we can use y equals and then graph our line. Keeping in mind that we're looking at our range, we're looking at our domain, and you kind of have to know what it's talking about. So some keywords to think about too is it discrete or is it continuous? Are we talking about tickets and people? Are we talking about measuring and foot sizes? Are we talking about only positive numbers? Or are we talking about only negative numbers? Things like that. So those are some keywords to look for in your domain and range. So let's practice some problems. So it says, what is the domain and range of f of x? So it wants both of these. So keep in mind function notation, f of x is just equal to y. That means that's going to be our y values. And I'm given an equation, so let me go ahead and graph that. So we're going to go to y equals, we're going to type in negative 37, and then we're going to graph. So remember, this is only a 10 by 10 frame, so we need to zoom out. Alrighty, so we see my function. It's a horizontal line. It's crossing the y-axis. Well, where does it cross the y-axis? Well, it's going to cross the y-axis at negative 37. That means I don't have any other y value. My only y value is negative 37. But if I'm looking at my x-axis, I could have a negative 12. I could have a positive 2. So it looks like, what's our fancy term? All real numbers is my domain. So all real numbers is my domain, and my range can only be negative 37. So D is my answer. And that's a continuous function. That's why we have domain of all real numbers. So let's read this one really quickly. It says the daily cost of hiring a plumber Y to work X hours on a repair project can be modeled by a linear function. So there's a keyword where I know we're dealing with a linear function versus a quadratic or an exponential. And it says we have a fixed cost of $80 plus, there's a keyword there, $45 per hour. So I have a function of $80 plus $45 per hour, because our cost is our y and our x is our hours. So let's see, the plumber can only work a maximum of 8 hours per day. So my x, we can start with 0 hours in the day, and we can end with 8 hours in the day, but I can't do any more hours. I only can work 8 hours in a day. I don't want to work 12. My plumber's not going to work 10. So this is my domain. But what is it asking for? It says, what is the range of the function in this situation? Well, this is my function, but in this situation, this is my domain. So I need to find the range that corresponds to my domain. So what corresponds? Well, we start with $80. So my lowest value of y can be $80. And then we have to have a bigger number. But using process of elimination, what would be my answer? My answer would be B, because that's the only one where my y, my lowest value of y is $80, because that's a fixed cost. Whether I work 0 hours or 1 hour, I will automatically charge the person $80. So if I work for half an hour, they're going to pay me $80. And then here for our x, that'll be how we get additional money. But let's graph this. Let's not graph this. We'll just take my word for it. So again, think about domain and range. Think about plotting all these graphs and all these functions to know what they are. But let's get to some graphs. Let's get to our quadratics. So remember, quadratics are a parabola. They're going to have a maximum or a minimum value. And this is asking us for a range. So it's asking for us for our y values. So I need to look at my y-axis. So my y-axis, we have a max value of 100 and a low value of 0. That means G is my answer. Now let's look at an exponential function. So it says graph the exponential function. Which statement is true? Well, remember, exponential functions have an asymptote, which means that they get really close to a number, but they never touch. So because they never touch it, that means we have my y has to be greater than 0, because it won't be equal to 0, but it'll be greater than 0, because I'll get really close to 0, but it won't include 0. Okay, so that's my range boundary automatically on a exponential function. And then we know our domain, because of these zeros, is going to be all real numbers. Oops, all real numbers. That's not how you spell that, but you get the gist. All real numbers. So which one is true? My range is less than 0? Nope, it's going positive. My domain, that's going to be all real numbers. So C would be my answer. So again, take quick trips, look through your answer choices, see which ones you can follow, look through what's your X, what's your Y. If you have a graph it, and just be careful reading those word problems.